Hey guys, it's Austin here with Out Jeeping. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace your old Jeep cables in the Jeep behind me and replace them with some new ones by jeepcables.com. Now make sure to stay tuned to the end of the video and I'll show you guys how you can win yourself a pack of Jeep cables. So the Jeep cables we're going to be replacing today are by jeepcables.com, and with this kit they either come with a 4 gauge or a 2 gauge. I selected for the 4 gauge, and you can get them for both the Cherokee or Wrangler. And with this kit they got all of the important Jeep cables. They also come with 2 military grade terminals, and they come with a fuse block for your alternator. So it's pretty straightforward. All of the cables have some labels on them so you know where they go. So it should be pretty easy to install. So let's get started. Alright, so as you can see in the engine bay, I have a lot of assortment of wires going around over here just because of all the accessories I have on my Jeep. But to make it easier, I'm actually going to be removing the battery. I got, for some reason, a different size battery, so I got a makeshift battery tie down. But for a normal Cherokee, you basically have 2 13mm bolts, one here and one here, and then you have a little tab that ties it to the front clip, and that's going to be a 10mm. So I'm going to start off by removing the battery to give us a lot more room. Alright, so now I'm just going to lift this out of place. Alright, so now we're going to start by removing our old wires, and you can do this in any order you want. There's nothing that you have to do first or anything. But basically, we got our positive and negative terminal. Off our positive, we have a wire going to the PDC, which is our power distribution center. And then we have the other one that goes all the way straight down to the starter. And now on our ground over here, we have one that goes to the fender. I had mine that was up here because the other one broke. And then we got one ground that goes all the way to the engine block. And then on the engine cylinder head, we have another one that goes to the firewall. Now another thing we're going to do with most of these wires is we're going to have to de-loom it from the factory wire loom. So basically we're going to take all this tape off and then take it out of this loom that goes all the way to the starter or alternator. Alright, so I just pulled off this one piece of wire loom that was holding a bunch of these wires together. And as you can see, we got our one red wire. And this one goes all the way down to the starter solenoid. So if you follow that loom all the way down there, you should be able to unbolt it right where the solenoid is. And also in this loom, we got this black wire that has a white stripe. And that wraps around under and all the way to the alternator, which connects right there where the finger is. And basically we got to pull off this cap, and then we should be able to back off that nut and put the new wire on. And on some of this wire loom, as you can see, it's a little bit chewed up where all these different wires are. So I'm actually just going to fix this. I got some extra 1/4 inch loom I'm just going to clean that up with. It's not required. You can use your old loom. That's perfectly fine, but I'm just going to be doing that. Alright, so under the Jeep is probably the best area you're going to get to disconnect the power wire to the starter. So up here on the top terminal of the solenoid, there's going to be a 13mm. So you can fit a socket up there, and now we can start to take this off. Alright, so we can pull the nut off, and then this cable should back off too. And within this wire loom, there's also another smaller wire, which is a basically the control wire for the solenoid on the starter. So that's going to run with this wire harness. And there's going to be a little isolator that helps keep the wire loom all in place, and that's going to be connected to the engine. And that's the last thing that's holding this in place. And basically that is going to be a 15mm, and then we should be able to take that right off. Crack that loose and you can take it off by hand. Alright, so I'm going to pull this entire wire harness out of place, which you don't have to do. You can just replace it in the loom, but I'm going to be replacing the loom too. So I'm going to pull it up through. Alright, so I ran our new wire down along with new loom I put in there. And as you can see, this is the wire that goes to the starter because we have a little label that has starter on it. So we're basically going to simply put this back in there. I'm actually going to put a little bit of dielectric grease just to thinly coat it, prevent any corrosion since it is lower down here where water can easily get up around there. Slide this over the terminal and then proceed to tighten it up. Then we can plug our little control wire back in if you unplugged it. And then we got this clamp that we took off before. As you can see, it actually comes apart with this little built-in clip style. And I went and cleaned it up with some brake cleaner because it's really nasty. So I'm going to put this back on to be able to hold the harness back into place. And then we can tighten that up. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to work on is taking out this alternator wire. And we got a protective cap that goes over it. Simply squeeze that and it comes right out. And then we got a nut right in there that we're going to take off. Now this nut is going to be a 12 millimeter. Alright, there's our nut. And the wire should just pop right off. And that's what the end looks like. And then we're going to need to transfer this cap onto our new wire. This simply just slides off. It's got a little retainer. Pops off just like that. Now we can take our old charging wire and completely remove it. This is connected all the way to the PDC. Alright, so over on the PDC, I just took off this plastic cap that helps protect that terminal. And this is going to be a 13 millimeter. We're going to remove this nut. And I got a lot of aftermarket stuff that I have connected to here, so most of you guys won't have all these wires connected. You'll just have a simple charge going to it. So I'm going to take a subwoofer thing off, lights, fan override, and then we have a wire that goes straight to the battery positive, and since the battery's already moved, we can actually take that out right away. And then we got our charging wire that wraps underneath the PDC. You can probably just pull it out from the other side. So if you didn't know this already, the old charging wire actually has a built-in fuse that's in the wire itself. And it's pretty hidden underneath all this wire loom, and a lot of people don't know that it's there. So that's why we're actually adding the new fuse holder. It'll be a lot easier to change fuses if for somehow that fuse were to blow. Alright, so with our new alternator wire, I put the old clip on there, and now we can go and put it on the terminal of the alternator. As you can see, for this one, you must have messed up on putting the terminals on here because this one is a little bit small, which isn't a big deal. I'm just going to drill this out to a 5/16 and it should be able to work. Alright, so with that drilled out, put it on now. And just like before, I put a little bit of dielectric grease on there to help prevent any corrosions. And now we can put our nut back on and then tighten it down. And then we can take our plastic cap and snap it back into place. Now since we're deep in the engine bay over here, I'm going to remove one last wire that's all the way down here, and that's going to be our ground wire that goes to the engine. Down here is where the terminal is, and that's going to be a 13 millimeter. And then we can pull out the wire. Be careful that there's other grounds going to that same location right behind it, so don't have that fall off. And then we can pull this entire ground wire out that goes all the way to the old terminal that goes to the battery. Now with our new ground cable that goes to the block, we can feed that into place and then snug it up. Alright, so now that we got all the hard to reach area places done, I'm going to go and button this all up with some nice new wire loom, and then we can move on to putting the fuse into place. Alright, so now I'm going to look for a place to mount the fuse. You can put it anywhere you want as long as it's able to reach all the cables it needs to. And for me, I'm actually going to mount it right down here onto this bracket for the PDC. And to help keep it all stable, I actually drilled 4 holes in there. That way I can put 2 zip ties, and then it should be able to hold it on there nice and firm. So I'm going to go and take a couple zip ties, zip tie that into place, and then we can take our alternator wire, stick it on one end, and then the other end is going to go all the way up to the PDC terminal up here. So as you can see, there is a little bit of slack, so I'm just going to bunch it up and zip tie it, and then I'm going to stick it underneath the PDC. There seems to be a little bit of room, so I can just store it up inside there. So I'm going to stick the zip tie through and then have where it goes in on the back side. That way there should be plenty of room for this fuse to fit in. Alright, so with that fuse firmly in place, I'm going to take our alternator wire and hook it up to one end of the fuse. Then we can tighten that down with a 14 millimeter. Now I'm going to take this extra slack and tie it up nicely. Alright, so now we can take our wire that goes from the fuse block all the way up to the PDC, and we are going to put it on this side of the fuse. And then the other side comes out and goes right over there. Once again, we're going to tighten this up. Alright, now we can take our cover and pop it into place. Just like that. Next, I'm going to take our last positive cable and hook it onto the PDC, and this is going to go straight to the battery. And now I'm going to put all the accessories I have for my Jeep and put them back onto this terminal. That tightened down, you can take your plastic protective cover and slide it back into place. You might have to notch out the corners since these cables are a little bit thicker, and if you have accessories, then that should snap in just like that. Alright, so the last cable we're going to put in on this side of the engine bay is our ground wire that goes to the fender to the negative side of the battery terminal. And usually you have a bolt that goes to the fender, and which is right next to this other one I put here. My original one actually snapped off because it was so rusted, so I went and just had this bolt put into place. So this is going to be my ground spot, so I'm going to slide this onto here, and then along with all my other grounds from my lights and stuff, I'm going to put that on here as well. Alright, so the very last cable we're going to be replacing is the one that goes from the firewall all the way to the back of the cylinder head, and that's going to be this ribbon back here. And to take it off, we got a 15 millimeter right at the firewall, and then we have a nut on top of a cylinder head bolt, and that's going to be 11/16. Squeeze a ratchet. Might be a little bit tight back here, but you can fit a deep socket with a 3/8 ratchet. Alright, and then we can pull that ribbon out of there. So now we can take our new cable and then slip that over the cylinder head bolt, and then take our nut and tighten it down. Then we can tighten it down. Alright, so the last thing we got to do is hook up our battery cables to our battery, and to do that we got some brand new military grade terminals that came with it. And you want to make sure you put this on properly. They got an N for negative, so that goes over here, and then P for positive on this one. And what's nice about these terminals is that they actually have a separate location where you put all of your cables on. That way you don't have to loosen this up every time you're putting on a cable, which is nice. So basically we're going to put this on all the way. You can use a hammer, tap it all the way in there, and then we're going to tighten that up. Then we can put all of the cables onto this back bolt over here. Alright, that's all there is to it. Now the last thing we got to do is just start it up and see if everything works. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for the installation. As you can see, it wasn't too hard at all. You just got to take the old cables out and put in the new ones. Alright, so now the part you all been waiting for. I'm going to be having a giveaway on 2 Jeep cable packs for a Jeep Cherokee XJ. One of them is going to be a 2-gauge set and one of them is going to be a 4-gauge. And to enter, all you got to do is comment below and say how my videos have been helping you with your project and or why you really need these Jeep cables. And I'll be picking 2 people within the next week that this video is uploaded. So make sure you comment below to get entered into the giveaway, and if you have any questions on how I install this. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Outtubing YouTube channel and I'll help keep these videos coming. And make sure to share this video to help give the word out on our giveaway that we're having. So until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.